Good morning, everybody. I'm Heather Boa. I'm the operations manager for the Huron Chamber of Commerce, which serves businesses and organizations in Goderich, Clinton, Blythe, Wingham, and the surrounding areas. Today we have Jessica Linthorne joining us. Jessica is the director of the Clean Energy Frontier program at the Nuclear Innovation Initiative. She's going to talk about a regional impact study completed in partnership with Bruce Power and Bruce County. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat box or raise your hand and Jessica can answer them at the end of the presentation. And I will now turn it over to Jessica.
Great, thank you. Thanks so much, Heather, and thanks for inviting me to speak to the group today. I really appreciate it. So yeah, as Heather mentioned, my name is Jessica Linthorne. I'm the director of the Clean Energy Frontier program here at the Nuclear Innovation Institute. And I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of the Nuclear Innovation Institute as the first half of my presentation, and then we'll dive into some of the economic impact report findings. So the Nuclear Innovation Institute, we're a demand-driven innovation group here in Port Elgin, Ontario, on the coast of Lake Huron, working closely with Bruce Power and the nuclear sector to drive the adoption of new technology and find efficiencies in the work we're doing. We are an independent, not-for-profit organization created in 2020. So, really right before the pandemic hit, of course, big plans of bringing people in through our space for this community hub with different programming. So things have shifted a little bit, of course, as everybody has had to shift and adapt during the pandemic, but looking forward to coming on the other side of it where we can get back together in person. So we act as a connector and a convener between our member companies and the groups that we work with, including the municipalities of Bruce Grey, Huron, and the lower tiers business organizations within those groups. We have a strong focus on raising the awareness and improving public education on energy issues. So we are capitalized by our founding members. And so these are the founding members of our organization. So you'll see we have Bruce County, of course, Bruce Power, and then nuclear suppliers, including BWXT, Fox Construction, Cameco, SNC-Lavalin, and Kinetrix. So these are companies that work closely with Bruce Power in the nuclear sector and also are diversifying their business models into medical isotopes. As an organization, we measure success by the direct and indirect value delivered to our founding members. So again, that notion of being innovative and finding efficiencies in the nuclear sector. We also measure our success by moving the needle towards a global clean energy future. So I'll speak a little bit more about my program and some of the clean energy initiatives that I'm working on, and then my colleagues as well. And of course, measuring by the social and economic benefit that we bring to the region as the clean energy sector. So when we think about the Nuclear Innovation Institute, there really are two main streams of business. And so I'll speak quickly to each of those. There's the industry innovation projects and then the public interest work. So our industry innovation projects, it's led by our colleague, Dr. Eric Johnston, and he's working with founding members and his team with the areas of focus around transforming and optimizing energy generation, reducing health and environmental stress, exploring net zero pathways. So you can see a little bit here on this slide about some of the topics, the areas of focus, and Eric is working with his team to drive innovation in the nuclear sector through these three pillars. But he's not doing that alone. We do have a group of friends of the Nuclear Innovation Institute, and our friends and our partners, including, there's more to add to this list, but including these groups that you can see on this slide. And post-secondary institutes being really active and engaged in the work we're doing. So really grateful to have agreements with these groups, and then some more to add to this list too. My colleagues' programs, I'm going to go through those programs now. Before I get into that, again, we really want to be part of the community conversation, and that's who we are at the Nuclear Innovation Institute. The middle picture here is demonstrating when COVID did hit and we were ready to do vaccines. We did open our doors and hosted a number of vaccine clinics here at the Nuclear Innovation Institute, which worked really well. We were able to do drive-through drive-through vaccine clinics, but then also have people come into the building. The community was really grateful, as we were very, very grateful to be able to offer this to the community. We also produce original reports, and so we'll speak a little bit more about some of that original data we're pulling together. And of course, you know, the smile on the left, when we have our STEM education programs, our children, our youth are very engaged in what we're doing. So with that perfect opportunity to talk about the Nuclear Innovation Institute's Explore program. So you may be familiar with Explore, really STEM education focused, engaging with students, working very closely with the school boards to bring to the classroom coding as an example, being out active in the community, speaking about science. So science in the summer, we visited a number of summer camps with different experiments, and really to engage our children and our youth about STEM education. My colleague Chad Richards is the director of the Center for New Nuclear and Net Zero Partnerships. And so Chad would be able to tell you so much more about his program, but it's been such a pleasure working with Chad and understanding and learning from him the work he's doing, really having a close look at the opportunities for new nuclear, and working even with some municipalities and some other groups who are working towards net zero. So offering some opportunity and discussion, and again, that connector and convener to make sure that groups have the best information and be a strong resource for them. Chad also recently produced the Store of Value report, so it can be found on our website. And so he does some deep dives into original research around energy storage. That's what this report's about. But working with our partners, with Bruce Power as well, groups like TC Energy as they move forward with a proposed Ontario pump storage project, again, to help understand and to share the science behind clean energy initiatives like energy storage. So just another slide here from Chad. When we think about clean energy and energy storage, you know, we recognize that when the sun isn't shining and the wind isn't blowing, we need to fire up gas plants. And how can we get away from that? And we can get away from that with energy storage. And so if we're able to store that clean energy, then we have it ready for us when we need it. So just again, a piece that comes out of that Store of Value report. And I would invite you, if you're interested, to take a look on our website and pull up that report. It's really fascinating information, and it's written in a way for everybody to understand. And that's a real point of pride with our organization, is that we do want to educate, engage, and inform everybody. So we are speaking to everybody with the work that we produce. We have another program around the environment. So environment at NII, where we're working with partners, commissioning research, really again with that greener, healthier world in mind. So doing some really good work right now in the community of Southampton and Saugeen Shores on Fairy Lake. So just yesterday, a colleague was sharing some of the findings about Fairy Lake, which is an inland lake. Again, just being dedicated to a greener and a healthier future. My colleague, Becky Smith, who's on the call today. Thanks for joining us, Becky. Becky is the director for the Center for Municipal Innovation. And so she works closely with the Municipal Innovation Council, which is a group of lower tier communities and Bruce County to support, to find innovative ways towards common challenges. And so again, you know, when we think about innovation, it's about finding that better way to do something. What's that new process? What's a new tool that we can apply? So Becky's working with these groups who have put money together, pooled resources, and said, yes, we have common challenges. Let's work together and find some solutions. So Becky has the really exciting job of doing that right here in Bruce County, serving, you can see the logos on this slide, so serving all of those communities. Really exciting initiative. We also, again, you know, going back to the Connect, Convene, we explain energy. We have different campaigns, and this is a great one to, again, you can find on our website and our YouTube channel, the Take a Moment to Better Understand series. So we have a couple of these videos now, and we will continue to produce them. This example is Take a Moment to Better Understand Hydrogen. There's also a video, take a moment to better understand net zero. And so again, some of these terms that we hear, you may have heard people talk about hydrogen or net zero. So being able to explain it in a way that makes sense for people. And again, it's that consumable opportunity to engage and inform people who live here in Bruce Grey, Huron and beyond. And then there's just some really great photos of the space that I'm sitting in the green room right now, which is so cleverly named. In the up right picture, that's our green room board meeting. But we're doing this out of our facility here in Port Elgin. It's a really, again, I mentioned at the beginning of the call, big open space opportunity to bring people in for different tech showcases. We have lots of wonderful ideas on how to engage the community, and unfortunately COVID has kept us away. We have, of course, offered, you can see a photo of Philip here, virtual programming, virtual meetings, but won't it be wonderful to get back to a place where we can invite everybody in to see our facility. So I'm going to spend some time now speaking to my program, which is the Clean Energy Frontier program. So the Clean Energy Frontier program, it's funded by Bruce Power and Bruce County. And really what it is, and my background being in economic development and corporate communications, this program is a new way of thinking about economic development. And so traditionally, we may think of an economic development person or stakeholder working in one area, one geographic area, and serving all sectors. And my program's unique that I'm serving 3 counties, Bruce Grey, Huron, and specifically focused on one sector, and that's the clean energy sector. So again, working really closely with the Huron County team, the Grey County team, and Bruce as well, to drive forward the conversation on clean energy initiatives while supporting the nuclear sector that has landed in the region. So this may sound familiar, and that's because in 2016, this program took shape, and it was called the Nuclear Economic Development and Innovation Initiative. And so at that time, Bruce Power, Bruce County came together and said, okay, we have an opportunity here to attract suppliers into the area and then to build that supply chain right here in the Clean Energy Frontier region. So we've done that. 2022, we are now rebranded, and the counties, all 3 counties, have endorsed the Clean Energy Frontier program. So we have expanded from the nuclear suppliers that were here in 2016. You can see on the map, we had 13 suppliers, all in Bruce County. Fast forward to today, we have 62 major suppliers across the 3 counties, including First Nations community. So, you know, again, just this to point out that deliberate effort has taken time, but we're seeing that reward in assessment growth, job creation, construction value, all of those good measurables that economic development stakeholders and elected officials like to see. We're seeing that happen. So now is when I will get very excited to talk about economic impact work. I like any economic development person, I love data. I love to be able to say, here's the proof in the work that we're doing. Here's the measurables. So we worked with Bruce County and Bruce Power to advance an economic impact study and having a look at what the economic impact of clean energy is in the 3 counties, but also across the province. So as you can see on the slide here, the GDP contribution from this sector was over $4 billion. And that includes our direct, indirect, and induced effects. When we compare to a few other sectors, you can see here 3.6 billion in aerospace products, 2.8 billion pulp and paper milling, and 1.5 billion provincial sawmills. Again, just to give you some comparables, that we sit over $4 billion with Bruce Power. And again, that's the direct and indirect. So Bruce Power, their staffing, their indirect, so their suppliers, and we just saw that there's 62 suppliers, and the induced effects of where those suppliers and those employees of suppliers might be shopping and spending their money as well, in the communities they're living in, paying taxes in, all of that to say our provincial GDP over $4 billion. I like this one just as another comparative, so 4.5 billion was the total for the motion picture and video production sector in all of Ontario. And so we are just shy of that at our 4.03. So again, just to paint the picture that what we have here is very special, and we have a significant contribution to the provincial GDP. This is a great slide, especially when we share with our municipal elected officials, to be able to point out that over $233 million was gathered for our municipal tax base, and majority of that being right here in the clean energy frontier region of Bruce Grey and Huron counties. So this is a really interesting slide, again, to me, but I hope to you as well, total household spending. And so with the clean energy sector in those 3 counties, we were able to sort out what that household spend would look like as a result of the direct, indirect, and induced from Bruce Power. So again, we think about Bruce Power's employees, we think about their suppliers, 62 suppliers. We think about, where that money is being spent here in the 3 counties. And so here's what we were able to come up with. And this is an interesting chart, and I'm gonna go through a couple of slides that point out some of the specifics, but an interesting chart. And really my message with all of this is that it's such a great time to be an entrepreneur right here in Bruce Grey, Huron County. And this was in 2020. So, again, I know no one needs the reminder of what happened in March 2020. But we still managed to spend $56 million on restaurants in 2020. And this is because of the clean energy sector. Over 71 million spent on retail clothing and accessories. And then over 16 million we spent on our household pets. And so, I think about the COVID puppies and the different critters that we adopted during the pandemic. And we spent 16 million bucks. And so, interesting when I see just here across the street in Port Elgin, Global Pet Foods just opened. Again, what a wonderful time to be an entrepreneur in Bruce Grey and Huron counties. When we look at dental and eye care service, we spent 12 million bucks across the 3 counties on dental and eye care, and that is excluding the amount covered by our insurance. So there's just some statistics there to share with you. And I mean, the opportunity continues. We are still having conversation with energy sector suppliers that are looking to expand into the region. There's opportunity for these businesses to diversify into medical isotopes. Medical isotopes are an outcome of nuclear power. So we're starting to see groups like Kinetrix and Framatome join forces. Those are 2 nuclear suppliers, but they've come together to create a group called Isogen. Now they're working with Bruce Power to move the medical isotope portfolio forward. So really exciting time here in our region of Bruce Grey, Huron. There's opportunity to leverage these skills and the experience and knowledge in the region. And again, I'm really working towards celebrating and making this industry cluster known. I'll just take one step back. When we talk about leveraging skills and experience and knowledge, just Friday, I had a conversation with Launchpad, which is an organization based out of Hanover. And Launchpad works closely with the town of Hanover's Economic Development Group, really as a workforce retention and a workforce strategy to bring youth, have youth engaged in the trades, and leverage that, the skills and experience in the community to engage and empower our youth. And so just Friday, I had a conversation with that group and a nuclear supplier that's here in Port Elgin about the idea of creating a launch pad in this area to support the youth. And number of people coming forward with experience and knowledge saying, I'm ready to teach people how to weld, as an example. We know there's lots of jobs. We know there's a shortage. How do we engage these youth for that workforce? So some really, really great work being done around workforce development with Bruce County's strategy, Grey County with the Sydenham campus, and I know Huron County has some great work on the go as well. So again, this program is an opportunity to work with all 3 counties and the economic development stakeholders with those groups and our elected officials to drive this conversation forward. So I'm just about to wrap up here on my presentation. Again, this is just, I think, a really fascinating slide. And when we think about industry clusters, You know, we may assume, and you can see on this chart, I always use Waterloo as an example. I spent some time in my career in Waterloo region, and Waterloo, you know, known as that tech sector, software publishing, pulling together students from the universities in that tech space. And that's what Waterloo is sort of known for. We think about Ottawa being sort of known as that federal, that's where all the federal government jobs are. So that's their industry cluster. But this is a measurement that's proving to us that the only cluster ahead of us in those jobs and that density of population is Sudbury with the mining industry. Next, you can see here, this is our 3 counties. This is the Clean Energy Frontier region, and we're known for our industry cluster with that electric power generation. So again, just an interesting slide that proves we do certainly have this clean energy cluster right here in the 3 counties. We also know that tourism and agriculture are the next economic drivers. So lots of opportunity, and we are working with the ag community through some of our programming. But then also I'm doing some really interesting work right now with electric vehicles supporting the tourism sector. So, you know, we don't take for granted the other opportunities that there are, especially when we think about, you know, the innovation opportunity, the tech opportunity, and how we can drive that change for a clean energy future. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and just open up the floor for some questions. I appreciate that was a lot of opportunity in a short amount of time, but Heather, maybe I'll just pass it back to the group, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. So Heather, I think you're still there.
There we go. There we go. Great. Thank you very much for that presentation, Jessica. It was very, very interesting to see the impact on all 3 of our counties as a result of clean energy sector. And, you know, we've really made great strides in the last decade here, that's for sure. I did have a question from one of our members who couldn't be here, who wondered if that report is available publicly.
Yeah, thanks. So we will have a summary report that will be public probably later in April. But right now, this slide deck is certainly available for the public. But you can expect a little bit more information coming out later in the month.
Great, thank you. And are there any questions from anybody who's attending today? Oh, I see something in the chat. TC Energy says that it's a great presentation. And sorry, I see that that's a direct message, so apologize for that. But it is a great presentation. Do we have any other questions? I do have a question that came to me from a member who couldn't be here. He is a farmer, and unfortunately the change in weather has meant a little bit of scrambling on the farm. He wants to talk a little bit more about the cost of nuclear activity. And his question, he is a member of the Chamber of Commerce, and his question is, if expansion of nuclear energy activities in our area are being promoted as clean, please explain how an industry that still has no way of detoxifying the high radioactive materials that are the waste products of their industry can be considered clean.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just also going to paste that in the chat box so that you can see.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so certainly I am not going to be able to speak technically on, you know, the waste and the nuclear waste management organization. So I can't dive into that. I'm here representing Bruce County and Bruce Power with the clean energy sector, with the Clean Energy Frontier program. I'm just going to take a look back at the question. Industries. Yeah, so I mean, again, you know, when we think about decarbonizing the future, and we recognize that, you know, Bruce Power, when we have nuclear energy, there's no emission. Yes, there is waste, and yes, that's acknowledged. But we in Ontario, we're not burning any coal. We don't rely on that. You know, we're seeing less smog days. We're eliminating smog days. the air is cleaner, and we thank nuclear industry for that, certainly. Now, I think that probably best that question, you know, the specifics around waste, that may be a question for the Nuclear Waste Management Organization. So maybe I'll just leave that one there.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Jessica. And I do see that there is another question in the chat box. Can you expand on the idea of building the business cluster and ecosystem around clean energy? What kind of services and vendors are being attracted to the area? And that comes from Herb at TC Energy.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, so sorry, I'm just looking at the question again. I learn best by reading. Yeah, so when we think about the business cluster and the ecosystem, so I used medical isotopes as an example. And medical isotopes, it's very exciting, and being able to service the entire, you know, send around the world these life-saving isotopes for, you know, for cancer treatments or other types of diagnosis. There is a business cluster and an ecosystem that is forming around that. When we think about the logistics, the life of some of these isotopes is very quick. So we need to process and package and out the door and to the to Pearson Airport to then fly for pharmaceutical processing. So there's one example of where, you know, I am seeing some of these businesses diversify and work together to support that, recognizing it's a really critical and a really great opportunity to service those in need. So the other thing too that I'll speak to, and you know, as TC Energy, of course, with the proposed Ontario Pump Storage Project that's proposed in Grey County in the municipality of Meaford, that's a really exciting and interesting project as well around energy storage. We do also know there's energy storage, a compressed air facility just outside of Goderich. So, you know, in Huron County as well, being really proactive into the space of energy storage. And so we're having more conversation around what that could look like, and recognizing, you may remember there was a slide in the presentation that had, you know, the difference between what it means if we have to fire up a gas plant versus what it means if we can just tap into that energy storage, and it's clean energy that's just stored waiting for us to access it. So we're starting to have more conversation around energy storage and recognizing it's a the technology is there. There's opportunity to continue to move those projects forward. So I think that, you know, that idea of that business cluster and ecosystem around energy storage is certainly a really strong opportunity as well.
And you've mentioned the economic impact of the clean energy sector. I just wonder too, for our business members, has there been identified gaps in service, areas specifically in the industry where just an entrepreneur could have an opportunity in a startup business?
That's a really great question. I think that, you know, it'd be difficult to speak for the 3 counties because it's such a big space and geographically really large, but diverse in offerings as well from one community to the next. Now, when I think about lower tiers having their own economic development strategic plans and doing a bit of that gap analysis, that's a really important exercise for everybody, you know, every community to do, because ideally each community would be able to offer all of those things. You know, when we think about the pet supplies, and we think about the dental and eye care, we think about retail clothing, some of those gift shops, but then restaurants as well. And to have that diversity in those tourism and retail spaces to keep our downtowns vibrant, to have lots of opportunity to spend that money. I think it's probably a question that's best suited amongst, or a conversation amongst the local tiers, lower level municipalities, to have those conversations, but then also at the upper tier being able to support those lower tiers to help them maybe identify where some of those gaps might be. But across the 3 counties, we're so fortunate. We have such wonderful entrepreneurs, and I know that this group would certainly recognize that. And I see some contacts on the call here that I know are nodding behind their screens, but what a fabulous group of entrepreneurs we have. and fabulous groups of business associations and organizations such as Huron Chamber of Commerce. It's really an inspiring opportunity to be involved in the business right now, the business world. The small business opportunities are endless. So I applaud anyone who is in that space. Being an entrepreneur would take lots of guts. You got to be really brave. And I know, my conversations with entrepreneurs across the 3 counties is that it's been really successful. And, I'm here to say that the clean energy sector is playing a role, but we also recognize the tourism economy is really vital, and we need to continue that, as well as support our ag community. So yeah, it's a great question, Heather.
Great, thank you. Anybody else have any questions for Jessica? This is your opportunity. Okay, I don't see anything, so I would like to thank everybody who attended this morning. It's been a really interesting conversation, and I do look forward to more of the great work that's being done out of the Nuclear Innovation Initiative and from the Clean Energy Frontier Program. So thank you very much, Jessica, and your colleagues who are also on the call.
Yeah, thanks so much, Heather. We appreciate the opportunity to share.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.